Very. He's got a big ego. Hanuman ranged about that place in search of the large-eyed Sita. So, 8 by 4, 4 eighths are 32. 32 square miles is like Los Angeles or something, you know. It's huge. Yeah. So he was looking for Sita. He saw the spacious abode of Ravana guarded by 3-tusked elephants and a mastodon with 4 tusks. So mastodon is a huge element. Yeah. And by the Rakshasas with upraised weapons. In some of the chambers he saw the Rakshasa wives of Ravana and princesses procured by force. The hall seemed as calm and deep as the sea with sharks, crocodiles, and whales. In other words, dangerous. Steadfast splendor of the moon was forever there. His prosperity seemed to exceed that of Kubera, Yama, and Varuna. Within the palace stood Pushpaka built by Vishwakarma for Brahma. Kubera got it from Brahma for his religious merit. Ravana procured it after vanquishing Kubera by his might. That Ratha had golden flights of stairs, crystal windows, and daisies of sapphire set with precious rubies and pearls. Its beautiful terrace, painted with perfumed red sandal paste, was radiant like the newly risen sun. Hanuman then got upon the Pushpaka, and being seated upon it, he began to sniff delicious smell of rich viands and drinks. In other words, rich meat and drinks. Hanuman's body became scented with that fragrance, and from that he inferred it to be Ravana's residence. Hanuman then got down from the Pushpaka and entered into the bedchamber of Ravana. It was a superbly beautiful hall. Its flights of stairs were wrought with gems, windows were made of gold, terraces of crystal, and images of ivory stood here and there. On all sides rose stately pillars with gems. It seemed as if the hall was like a bird with its wings spread. Under the terrace hung a 4-cornered painted canopy. It was white as a swan, but cloudy with the smoke of aguru. Did you look up aguru?
I was not able to find the Sanskrit. But let me search.
See, it is a wood, like ulud is a wood. And I think it's the same as aguru. Okay. It was decorated with diverse leaves and flowers, like Vasista's cow of variegated hues. Everyone was delighted by its sight. One would grow healthy by its radiant shine, and it delighted the senses of Hanuman as a mother does her child with objects of beauty, taste, etc. At the sight of that hall, Hanuman was puzzled. So, actually, one would grow healthy by its radiant shine. So, that is a type of light therapy. Light therapy is well, first of all, and if you are able to have a sunbath in the morning sun, it makes you healthy. Afternoon sun is not healthy, but the morning sun is healthy. So light is a healing substance. Yeah.
The agro is, in English, it's called aloe wood or eagle wood.
Yeah, how do you spell aloe?
A-L-O-E, W-O-O-D.
Mm-hmm.
Aloe wood or eagle wood, and it's bitter in taste and hot in action. It increases blood circulation to the lungs and head area and warms the entire body. It's
Can you look up, see if you can, is there a translation of that word into Arabic? Aloe wood.
okay. So here we have only Latin, Sanskrit, and English. Let me take a look at it.
Everyone was delighted by its sight. One would grow healthy by its radiant shine, and it delighted the senses of Hanuman, as a mother does her child with objects of beauty, taste, etc. At the sight of that hall, Hanuman was puzzled. Was it an illusion? Was it heaven, or the region of Varuna? He saw lamps burning upon the golden pillars, but robbed of their effulgence, the glitter of gold. Like gamblers worsted in the game of dice by their cunning opponents, hence gloomy and plunged in thought. At that time, the hall was exceedingly luminous by the effulgence of Ravana and by the sheen of jewels. In other words, Hanuman gets puzzled. He's a little confused because he's not quite sure if he's in the house of a demon or is it some heavenly planet.
In Arabic, it's Om.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I read the Arabic version of it.
Yeah.
I read the word in Arabic and it's Om.
Yeah, so they say ulud or uld. Yes. So I was right. It's very expensive. You can buy it in Orissa.
It's known for its incense and perfumes.
Yes, yeah, exactly right. You see, the Arabs are like Rakshasas, so they like things like that. There, a number of beautiful damsels, adorned with excellent garlands and attired in superb apparel and ornaments, were lying on painted woolen sheets. It was past midnight. They had then ceased from their amorous sports and were buried in deep sleep under the influence of drink. The jingling sounds of their ornaments were no more to be heard, so it appeared like a field of lotuses devoid of the hissing noise of snakes. The eyes of those damsels were closed, and sweet lotus-like smell was coming out of their mouth. Those faces bloomed like lotuses when awake at day, and at night they appeared like the lotus buds being gathered in sleep. So the lotus opens during the day and closes at night. And at their sight, Hanuman thought that the bees would ever wish for those lotus-like faces. In fact, for their beauty, he then thought of their countenances to be veritable lotuses. Ravana's bedchamber was full of these beautiful damsels, hence the place looked like the clear blue autumnal sky strewn with stars. Ravana, the Rakshasa chief, was always surrounded by those faultless beauties, for which he appeared like the beautiful moon encircled by a galaxy of stars. Then Hanuman, seeing those royal dames, thought that those stars for the loss of their virtues had dropped from the heaven and were lying in that chamber. In short, their beauty, grace, and radiance were like that of the stars. From drink and dalliance, their hair was disheveled, and the jewelry lay scattered about them. Each one was buried in deep sleep. Some of the beauties had their paints off, in other words, their cosmetics off. Anklets fell from someone's feet, and bracelets from the wrists of some. Someone's gold chain hung on one side. Someone's pearl necklace was torn. Someone's zone had slipped. Someone's cloth had fallen off from her. They were under the influence of wine and were fatigued like pack horses from carrying burden. Someone's earring was broken while another's garland was torn. Each one looked pretty like a tender flowering creeper trampled by an elephant. Some beauty's pearl necklace, white as the moonbeam, gathered into a heap beneath her two breasts, appeared like a sleeping swan. Someone's chain of lapis lazuli looked like a waterfowl, while another's golden necklace looked like a chakravaka. Those beauties looked like so many rivulets, their hips for banks, zones for ripples, and faces for golden lotuses. See, this is approximately 1.7 million years ago. So you can see that society at that time was just as or more advanced than it is today. So you think the farther back you go, you end up with cavemen. No, that's not true. This is all happening in the Treta Yuga, approximately 1.7 million years ago, according to the Mahabharata times. Of those damsels, some bore marks of amorous dalliance on their breast, and some on their tender flesh. Someone's scarf, gently shaken by her breath, was repeatedly screening her face, as if a pinion of gold thread was gently waving in the breeze. Another's earring was being gently tossed by her scented breath. Someone, under the influence of sleep, was repeatedly kissing her rival's face, thinking it to be that of Ravana. Everyone was deeply attached to Ravana, so her rival too kissed her co-wife's lips in return under the influence of liquor, thinking it as that of Ravana. Completely drunk. Yeah. Someone converted her arm adorned with jewels into her pillow. Someone rested her head on another's breast, while a third lay upon the latter's head. One was lying on another's lap, while a third one slept over the former's bosom. Thus all slept together, leaning against one another, and with their interlocked arms they looked like a threaded garland, and it seemed as if the creepers blossomed at the advent of the spring, being shaken by the wind, got interlaced with their clusters of flowers, touching on one another. Being gathered in sleep, hardly any difference was perceptible amongst them. Ravana was then buried in sleep, so the glare of the golden lamp fell full upon those sleeping beauties without fear, as if gazing on them with winkless eyes. The daughters of royal saints, Brahmanas, Daityas, Gandharvas, and of the Rakshasas, being smitten with Cupid, had come of their own accord, being enamored of Ravana's beauty and splendor. All were high-born queens, and by their beauty and attainments were great favorites of Ravana. Wow. So he didn't have to forcibly take many of them.
Many of them actually, they were craving to become the wives of Ravana. I mean, the ogress tells Sita that they couldn't believe that Sita did not want to marry Ravana.
Right.
They just couldn't believe it. Because they wanted that particular honor, and so he had 1,000 wives, he was still not happy with them. I mean, this was a place of debauchery.
Well, that proves that sex gratification does not really satisfy someone. It's like a fire. The more you put into the fire, the more it consumes, but it never goes out. Then Hanuman thought, had Rama's wife been, like these royal dames, a queen of Ravana, it would have been better of Ravana. But she is greatly devoted to Rama, and Ravana, with great difficulty, has carried her off by assuming a magic form. So, he hasn't seen Sita Devi yet. Ravana, chapter 8. When Hanuman was looking round the bedchamber, his eyes fell upon a crystal dais. It was wrought with jewels and was exceedingly beautiful. In fact, there was none like it in the whole world. Upon it stood a bedstead of sapphire, the stands or legs of which were made of ivory inlaid with gold, and over it was spread the most costly coverlet. The bedstead was decorated with wreaths of ashoka, and on one end stood an umbrella white as the moon. Everywhere artificial figures with mechanical contrivances were waving their fans and chowries. Artificial figures with mechanical contrivances. This is 1.7 million years ago. More complicated than today.
They were quite advanced in robotics and
Yes.
artificial intelligence and all that way back in the day.
Yeah.
We are still trying to catch up.
It was fragrant with diverse perfumes and with the incense of agaru, and over it spread highly delicate, soft kid skins, soft lamb skins. Upon that bed, King Ravana was asleep. His body was besmeared with sweet-scented red sandal. His color was dark, like that of a deep blue cloud. He bore bright earrings, cloth of gold, and had various ornaments on his person. He looked like a cloud tinged with the evening rays and fraught with lightning. It seemed as if the Mandara hill, covered with flowery creepers, fell upon the surface of the earth. He was beautiful and could assume any form at his will. After ceasing from the revelries of drink, he was breathing heavily like an elephant in sleep. Seeing Ravana, the chief of Lanka, Hanuman fell back with fear. Then, gently ascending the stairs, Hanuman repeatedly gazed at the mighty hero, numbed with wine. The powerful Ravana was sleeping, and his bed seemed to be a grand cascade, and his arms outspread like the flagstaffs of Indra. They were adorned with ornaments and were strong and firm like bolts, and the trunk of an elephant. His thumbs and beautiful nails and his fingers, being adorned with rings, looked like a penta-headed snake, five-headed snake. And his arms bore the marks of wounds caused by the tusks of Airavata, the elephant of Indra, by the thunderbolt of Indra, and by the discus of Vishnu. They were smeared with sweet-scented sandal. Those mighty arms had vanquished the gods and the asuras in the field of battle. Great Ravana looked highly beautiful with those arms. His perfumed breath, carrying the fragrance of punaga and bakula flowers, and of wine, filled the rooms. His countenance was beautiful with resplendent earrings, and his jeweled diadem of gold slipped on one side. His mighty chest was smeared with sandal paste and was radiant with jewel necklace, and he wore a white silken cloth. At that time he appeared like an elephant immersed in the bed of the Ganges. At that time 4 golden lamps burnt in the 4 corners of the room, and like lightning in a mass of clouds, it rendered the dark figure of Ravana distinctly visible. His wives were lying under his feet. Their countenances were beautiful as the moon, and they wore sapphire earrings, diamond bracelets, and garlands of unfaded luster. So if you ever see a real diamond ring, it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's not like, let's say you have a fake diamond ring made out of cut glass. It will not shine like a real diamond. A real diamond, you can see it from far off. Very few, I don't know. Usually the diamonds people have are very small, but when you have a big diamond ring, and the diamond is relatively large, you can see it shining from very far away. By their beauty, the bed appeared like a star-bespangled sky. In other words, it looks brilliantly bright with many stars. They were highly skilled in music and dancing, and being overcome with fatigue, they were then enjoying rest and sleep. So these are the wives. One beauty is just like, the Miss America contest. Each one has to dance and sing and do all these different arts. Not only they have to be beautiful, but they have to also have certain mastery of some type of art form. One beauty skilled in dancing slept embracing the lyre, the vina, betraying a graceful posture of dancing, as if a full-blown lotus drifted by the current was resting by the side of a craft. Someone slept with muduka, musical instrument, on her lap, like the mother sleeping with her baby. One lay with tambur, another with panava, while a third one slept having the dindimas both in front of her and at her back. Dindima, is that the drum that Lord Shiva plays?
That is damru.
Damru, okay. So dindima is something else. Like a woman sleeping with her husband and child. One lotus-eyed beauty lay embracing her vina like an amorous girl hugging her lover to her breast. Someone slept crossing her fair arms on her lovely breast, like the golden pitchers. Amongst those beauties, Hanuman saw Mandodari, the beloved queen of Ravana. She was sleeping on a separate bed, adorned with ornaments, and illumined the hall by the radiance of her beauty. Her color was that of a flaming gold, and she was the queen of the harem. Seeing the beauty and youth of Mandodari, Hanuman took her to be Janaki. At this, Hanuman's face brightened with joy, and true to the mercurial temperament of his race, he danced and sang in delight and kissed his tail and swung his arms. Hanuman's Reflections, Chapter 9. So he momentarily mistakes Mandodari to be Janaki, or Sita. Hanuman, then renouncing his apish thoughts, meditated coolly. Janaki is extremely devoted to Rama, and it is not at all likely that being separated from Rama, she would indulge in food or drink or in any sort of luxury, even in sleep. Luxury in dress or ornaments must be out of question in her case, not to speak of others. She will not even crave for Indra. Rama is the best of all. There is no second to him even amongst the gods. So the lady I am now beholding must be some other woman. So he uses what's called a priori knowledge. There's a priori and a posteriori. A priori means knowledge that is self-evident and appearing before the fact. And a posteriori is knowledge that you understand after an examination of facts. So Hanuman is using a priori knowledge. He says, Sita, being separated from Ram, would not be drunk, would not be dressed lavishly, would not be perfumed, would not have her hairdo done and all these things. It can't be her. Even though this woman looks exceedingly beautiful, it cannot be her.
Hanuman will kiss his tail, he'll jump up and down, he'll do a couple of somersaults. He'll pat himself with joy. Oh, today I found Mother Sita, and then he will realize
it can't be her.
It cannot be her.
Yeah.
The change in his mood is given so beautifully.
Yes.
So beautiful.
He renounces his apish thoughts and meditated coolly. Janaki is extremely devoted to Ram, and it is not at all likely that being separated from Rama she would indulge in food or drink or in any sort of luxury, even in sleep. Luxury in dress or ornaments must be out of question in her case, not to speak of others. She will not even crave for Indra. Rama is the best of all. There is no second to him even amongst the gods. So the lady I am now beholding must be some other woman. This a priori knowledge is like self-evident knowledge. Like, for example, if you say that every person has a mother and father, right? That's self-evident. You can't argue against it, right? You can say, no, well, how about the test tube baby? Well, a test tube baby also has a father and mother, right? The seed and the egg are put together in the test tube, but the egg came from someone and the seed came from someone. So it's a priori. It's before the fact. You don't have to experiment. You know it's true. Thus thinking, Hanuman for some time paced up and down over the place of dancing. So instead of dancing now he's pacing. The beautiful damsels slept round about the place, some tired with singing, some with dancing, and some intoxicated with drink. Someone was explaining skillfully a piece of music. Someone in a dream was praising another's beauty. So, they're asleep, they're talking in their sleep, and so forth. Different venisons, meat of deer, buffaloes, and boars were there in heaps. In spacious golden dishes were kept untouched meat of cocks, peacocks, roasted deer, bacon seasoned with curd, partridges, different kinds of birds, kid flesh, well-cooked fish, and lean hare. Hare meaning rabbit. So this is a real feast for demons, right? All meat, all different kinds of meat. At another place, but see, here you can understand something. Ravana is a Rakshasa. But even Ravana doesn't eat a cow. It's not that stupid. Because he knew the Vedas. You eat a cow and you suffer terribly. He's got every other kind of meat, but there's no cow meat. Okay. Then...
So Ravana had some semblance of brain food. The reading had come.
Well, he knew the Vedas. Yeah. At another place, he had buffaloes. Meaning water buffaloes. At another place were to be found delicious drinks, salted soup with a little acid taste. At another place were heaps of fruits and roots. The place of drinking was perfumed with fragrant wreaths, meaning wreaths, bunches of leaves and other things, all around. There were seats and beds, and the whole place seemed to be ablaze even without fire. At one place, garlands were heaped together. There were golden jars, crystal goblets, and vases inlaid with gems. All those were full of wine distilled from sugar, honey, flowers, and fruits, and flavored with aromatic powder. There were goblets whose contents had been drained to the dregs, some with their quantity left behind, some full of wine quite untouched. All those were arranged according to some custom. There were many beds left vacant. The women were sleeping clasping each other. One was asleep covering herself with another's cloth. Gentle breezes were blowing by carrying the scent of sandal flowers and of sweet wines. Hanuman ranged about the whole place but could not find Janki there. Hanuman became afraid of incurring sin for seeing those queens of Ravana. He thought, "It is surely unrighteous to see another's wife under the influence of sleep. I have never cast my eyes since my birth on another's wife. Surely I shall be guilty of iniquity for seeing Ravana addicted to others' wives. I have just now seen Ravana's wives disheveled in sleep, but my mind has not been least stirred by it. It is mind that induces the senses either to virtue or to vice. Besides, it was necessary to search for her amongst the women, so I shall not lose my righteousness. I have entered the place with a pure mind. I have seen every corner of the harem, but could not find Janaki anywhere." So this is a very, very interesting, extremely profound statement by Hanuman. He explains the difference between acting under the oath or vow of duty and acting impetuously for sense gratification. So, as a matter of duty, he enters Ravana's bedroom while Ravana and his wives are asleep. He examines each one of the beautiful wives of Ravana, but he's not attracted by their beauty because he's acting out of duty. He's promised Rama that he will find Sita and bring news of her back to him. So, this is very interesting for us because the major, material life is what you call a honey trap. Do you know what a honey trap is? Honey trap is, like for example, you can buy a strip of paper like this, and it has an intoxicating sticky substance on it. So all the flies and bugs get stuck on it. Have you ever seen that? No. Yeah. So that's like a honey trap. It's something appealing. it has a certain scent or flavor that attracts someone. In this case, the flies. And they're attracted to it, and they fly. As soon as they land on it, they're stuck. They can't get away, and they die. So a honey trap is something that's very attractive, but once you touch it, you're stuck, and you're killed. Killed by the stickiness. You can't get away, and you eventually die of hunger or exhaustion. So Hanuman did not get caught in this. And actually, Hanuman is a real brahmachari, because even though these women are basically just about naked, and they're asleep, and they're extremely beautiful, but he's not attracted by them because he's acting out of duty. So this is the message of Bhagavad Gita also. Jai Shri Shri Radha Nil Madhava Ki Jai Namo Vishnu Padakshita Vistai Bhakti Srimati Bhakti Durena Hiravaram Karma Buddhi Yoga Dhananjaya Buddhayo Saranam Anvicha Kripana Phala Hetava. O Arjuna, Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. One who has actually come to understand one's constitutional position as an eternal servitor of the Lord gives up all engagements, save and except working in Krishna consciousness. As already explained, Buddhi Yoga means transcendental loving service to the Lord. Such devotional service is the right course of action for the living entity. Only misers desire to enjoy the fruit of their own work, just to be further entangled in material bondage. So here's Hanuman engaging in what would be, let's say, enticing for a normal person, but he's not at all enticed by it. He's acting out of duty. Okay? Just like sometimes, like we're having a festival and there are police who are, hired by us as security, and the devotees always offer the policeman, would you like to have, some prasadam? Would you like to, can we get you a cold drink? And they always say, no, I'm on duty. I can't. You see. So, when you act out of duty, you're able to resist the allure of honey traps. But when you're leisurely walking around, you get easily trapped. So Krishna consciousness means we're always acting out of a spirit, in the spirit of duty to Krishna. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. He is the supreme Purusha. We are the enjoyed. We are, in a sense, Prakriti. Therefore, we should use everything we have, our body, our mind, our senses, everything in the service of Krishna. As soon as we forget Krishna and use these things for our own self-indulgence, we get trapped by material nature, by Maya. So if we're always engaged in the service of the Lord, like Hanuman, we'll never get trapped. Such devotional service is the right course of action for the living entity. Only misers desire to enjoy the fruit of their own work, just to be further entangled in material bondage. Except for work in Krishna consciousness, all activities are abominable because they continually bind the worker to the cycle of birth and death. One should therefore never desire to be the cause of work. Everything should be done in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Krishna. As soon as we desire to do something for our own personal satisfaction, we become the doer. And there will be a result, either positive or negative, that will keep us bound up in the cycle of birth and death. But if we act only out of duty to please Krishna by our actions and thoughts, there is no karmic reaction. There is no entanglement. See? One should therefore never desire to be the cause of work. Everything should be done in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Krishna. Misers do not know how to utilize the assets of riches which they acquire by good fortune or by hard labor. One should spend all energies working in Krishna consciousness, and that will make one's life successful. Like misers, unfortunate persons do not employ their human energy in the service of the Lord. So Hanuman is a perfect example of reactionless work. He's doing something that normally would be considered to be very sinful. Going into what he's doing would be called a peeping Tom. A peeping Tom is someone who surreptitiously observes other people during their private time, in their bedroom or whatever. And it's actually a crime in the United States. If you get caught, looking in someone's bedroom, you could be arrested. Right? However, and Hanuman makes a point of that. He says, this is very sinful. I'm going to a married man's bedroom late at night and looking at his wives, right? But he said, I never cast my eyes since my birth on another's wife. Surely I shall be guilty of iniquity, of sin, for seeing Ravana addicted to others' wives. I have just now seen Ravana's wives disheveled in sleep, but my mind has not been the least stirred by it. In other words, his mind is not agitated by it. He's not thinking, like, for example, once there were two brahmacharis, and they were walking, and they came to the bank of a river that they had to cross. But there happened to be a very old woman who was partially, let's say, maybe partially paralyzed, not completely paralyzed, partially, and she was tired, and she was sitting on the bank of the river, and she begged them to carry her over to the other side of the river. Now, these are two brahmacharis. They have a vow of chastity. So one of them refused. He said, I never touch a woman. The other one said, Dear mother, he said, I will carry you. So he picks her up in his arms, and she holds on to him, and he holds on to her. And he walks across the river and places her down on the opposite bank. So then the two brahmacharis continue on their journey. And in about 15, 20 minutes, maybe half an hour later, the brahmachari who refused to carry the lady said, you have violated your vow of brahmacharya by touching that woman. And he said, well, you're right, in a sense. I touched her for the 5 minutes that it took to carry her across the river, but you're still thinking about her a half an hour later. So which one is, really touched by her, or who's actually touched her? You've been holding on to her for a half an hour. I only held her for 5 minutes to carry her across. So he acted out of duty, with no personal, desire. And the other one was meditating on her and thinking that some great sinful activity had been done. So the Hanuman makes this point, and that is, I have entered the place with a pure mind. I have seen every corner of the harem, but could not find Janaki anywhere. So it is the mind that induces the senses either to virtue or to vice. Now this is like a quote from the Bhagavad Gita in the 2nd chapter. Krishna says, Indriyanam hi charatan yan mano nuvidyate tadasya harati pragyam vayur navam ivambasi. As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. It's a very important verse. Unless all of the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, even one of them engaged in sense gratification can deviate the devotee from the path of transcendental advancement. As mentioned in the life of Maharaj Ambarisha, all of the senses must be engaged in Krishna consciousness, for that is the correct technique for controlling the mind. So Hanuman says, it is the mind that induces the senses either to virtue or to vice. So the mind is the sixth sense, and it receives the information from the knowledge-gathering senses, which are five: the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the skin. So, if one of the senses becomes fixed on an object, and therefore the mind perceives that and begins to contemplate that object, from that attachment arises. As that attachment increases, it becomes lust. When the lust is frustrated, it becomes anger. When there's anger, there's delusion. When there's delusion, there is confusion of the memory. And when there's confusion of the memory, there's loss of intelligence. And when there's loss of intelligence, which discriminates between good and bad, value and valueless, one falls down into the whirlpool of material life. So it is the mind that induces the senses either to virtue or to vice. If the mind is, let's say, preoccupied with performing duty to Krishna is called Sanatan Dharma. The correct way of translating Dharma is spiritual duty for God. In other words, a spiritual obligation one feels to serve God and not deviate from the path. So, Sanatan Dharma is the eternal activity of the soul. And because of that, one is not prone to fall down, to be attracted by temporary sense gratification. Therefore, in the 6th chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna, Bandhur anatmanatmanas, yenatmaevatmana jita, anatmanas to satrudve, vartatatmaiva satravat. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. So the whole purpose of yoga is to control the mind in order to make it a friend in discharging the human mission. The human mission is to understand our relationship with Krishna and go back to Godhead. In other words, become free from the cycle of birth and death. Unless the mind is in control, the practice of yoga for show is simply a waste of time. One who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and his mission are spoiled. The constitutional position of a living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. Now, this is a major point. The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. Like, for example, children are supposed to carry out the order of their parents. Parents are supposed to carry out the order of their parents. An employee is supposed to carry out the order of the employer. The citizens are supposed to carry out the order of the state. So, the constitutional position of a living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. Now, the supreme superior is Krishna or God. And the supreme duty is to carry out the order of God. So this is what Hanuman is doing. Therefore, he didn't waver, even though he walked through the valley of the shadow of death, using the language of the Bible. He walked through Ravana's bedroom with all his drunken wives sleeping and basically naked. And he was not deterred in any way by it. He wasn't attracted. So, one can control the mind not by artificial practice of physical yoga, but by dedicating oneself to pleasing Krishna. And Krishna says that Nata Chasman Manusyesu Kaschit Me Priya Kritama Bhavita Nachame Anya Priya Taro Bhuvi. No one is more dear to him than that person who teaches others the Bhagavad Gita by words and by actions. So, if we want to be dear to Krishna, if we want to be engaged in the Sanatan Dharma, the eternal dutiful activity that we're meant to do, then we should learn Bhagavad Gita and teach it to others. And as we see, Bhagavad Gita is the quintessential philosophical understanding of Krishna. And therefore, when you read the Ramayana or you read the Mahabharata, you will see the echoes continually of Bhagavad Gita. Just like we read this one statement by Hanuman, it is the mind that induces the senses either to virtue or to vice. Then we found several or more verses echoed by that statement of Hanuman. Right? Bhagavad Gita is older than the Ramayana. Ramayana is 1.7 million years old, right? But Bhagavad Gita was originally spoken to Vivaswan over 2 million years ago. Therefore, it is a quintessential truth of spiritual life in one book in 700 verses. Okay, so now Hanuman saw the daughters of the gods and of the Nagas, but Janaki was not amongst them. Hanuman then left the place. He had no business there anymore. His business was to find Janaki, and when he was reassured by careful examination that she was not amongst the drunken wives of Ravana, immediately he left. He didn't linger there to enjoy the sights. Then Hanuman thought, I have searched different places of Lanka, but nowhere could I find a beautiful Janaki. It now appears that the devoted Sita has given up her life. She had been ever jealous for the preservation of her chastity, and the wicked Ravana, being disappointed for it, has put her to death. Ravana's wives are tall, hideous, have spacious mouths. Perhaps Janaki has died of fear at their sight. Alas, there is no means of getting her sight now. In vain I have crossed the ocean. The time for search is over. It will now be difficult for me to go back to the irritable Sugriva. All my labors have been in vain. What will the old Jambavan and Angada say? The allotted time is over. It is better to fast to death. It is not proper to destroy oneself, but perseverance is the root of success. Okay, now here's another gem of truth. Perseverance is the gem of success. Perseverance means you tolerate all kinds of difficulties in order to execute your duty to ultimately to Krishna, to God. In a lower sense, to family, to state, and so forth. But in the best sense, your duty to God, which is called Sanatan Dharma. So perseverance is the root of success. So there was once a Scottish revolutionary. This is, I think, the 17th century, and he was fighting against the what's his name? Okay, Robert Bruce. Yeah, and he was always fighting against the Brits, the British, the English, and but you know he was always in difficulty, and one day he was in the toilet and he was just thinking, and he noticed that there was a spider trying to make a web, and the spider makes a web by using its saliva, which is a very sticky substance, and it sort of spits the saliva, and then it makes this string-like it makes a string-like form, and it connects two points. Well, it kept trying to connect 2 points, and it kept failing. But it kept trying. I think it failed like 20 times to make that one connection. But on the 21st time, it succeeded. And the Scottish revolutionary, I guess it's Robert Bruce, he noticed that. And he said, and I learned a lesson from that spider. He said, I have failed many times, but I'm not going to give up. So perseverance is, as it says here, the root of success. There is pleasure in endeavoring, so I should gather up my energy again. See, now this is what you call kicking in of intelligence. Intelligence is the discriminative factor. The mind simply receives information and stores it. Sometimes the mind makes rash decisions based on sense gratification. This is good, this is bad. But the intelligence is deliberative. It thinks very deeply whether something is actually good or bad. It can discern between these things in a more significant way than the mind. Therefore, Hanuman uses his intelligence to overcome his discouragement and his frustration and his negative thoughts. And he says, there is pleasure in endeavoring, so I should gather up my energy again. I have searched the drinking hall, picture gallery, flower groves, playground, rooms in the 7-storied buildings, underground cellars, religious edifices, gardens, and the passages within the palace. It is now necessary for me to search those places what I have not as yet seen. He what?
He doesn't become complacent. He doesn't think that, oh, I've done as much as I could, and now I have to go back. He encourages himself to go further.
He lets no stone unturned. Right? He lets no stone unturned. Right? He hasn't looked everywhere. He got quickly discouraged because he went through all that effort through in Ravana. I mean, don't forget, Ravana's bedroom, right, is, 8 miles long and 4 miles wide. So that's a pretty big area to survey, right? And so resolving this, Hanuman began to range about Lanka. Sometimes he climbed up, sometimes he got down. At times he stood, at another time he advanced only a few steps. At one time he shut one door, at another time he uplifted the latch. Thus he did not leave any spot unvisited. He left no stone unturned, right? He searched every nook and corner. He saw hideous Rakshasis, exquisite Vidyadhari girls of faultless beauty, and the daughters of the Nagas with moon-like countenances, but nowhere was Sita to be seen. Then his mind was plugged in grief, and he became anxious, thinking of the Vanaras and of crossing the sea. Now, this is an ultimate test of, let's say, Sanatan Dharma, spiritual duty. Hanuman has to examine beautiful women, many of them virtually naked, right? Now, it's explained that the heavenly damsels, like the Apsaras or the Vidyadharas, they're so beautiful that an earthly man looking at these women would virtually stop breathing and be stunned, right? Or even faint. They're so overwhelmingly beautiful. Not Hanuman. You see. He can see they're beautiful, but he's not affected by it because he's acting out of duty. Duty to Lord Ram. Right? So this is the key. If someone actually loves Guru and Krishna, they're no longer attracted to anything in the material world. But yet, they deal with the material energy in a very selective and intelligent way, without becoming victimized by it or illusioned by it. It's like the expert surgeon. The expert surgeon is not affected by cutting a person open, spreading the skin, and then seeing the inside of the body. Not affected by it, and the blood, and he can perform very, very delicate operations, heart operations, brain operations, right? Where you're a quarter of an inch or an eighth of an inch away from killing someone, right? You have to be so careful. And then he can sew the skin, you know, he can sew the heart muscle, he can sew the liver. I mean, normal people do not have the stamina nor the courage to do such things. That's why to become a heart surgeon requires many years of training, many years, because you're opening up the body, and you know, when you see the body whole, that's one thing. You take it apart, it's very emotionally disturbing for many people. They just, you know, they become faint. In the same way, here Hanuman is objectively looking at the wives of Ravana to find Sita. He's not emotionally looking. Hey, you and I, if we go to a hospital operating room and we see them cut open a person and open up the skin, and there is the heart, there's the liver, there all the veins and intestines and everything, you get emotional. If you're not trained, you get completely emotional. But the surgeons, they're looking at it objectively. They see the heart, they see the aorta, they see this, they see that. They know the names of everything. They know the names of every bone, every ligament, every muscle, right? So they're looking objectively, and we just see spaghetti and with a lot of ketchup, and we get confused, right? Yeah.
Kind of immune to that, right? So is Hanuman also immune to the effects of material nature?
No, because he notices that they're beautiful women. He notices the exquisite architecture, the subtle lights and the subtle, workmanship. But his purpose overrides the attraction to those things. He sees them, just like you see them, I see them, right? But you and I seeing the surgeon operating in the operating room would be disturbing for us. But the surgeon is objective, right? He's acting out of duty, you know. And Hanuman is objective. He's seeing all these things, but he's objective. He's not there to try and enjoy. He's there on a mission to please the Lord. He has a higher mission than his personal self-indulgence. Right?
There's this challenge with what Krishna has said that we should be like water on the lotus leaf.
Well, the water on the lotus leaf is that it does not wet the leaf. Right. It lands on the leaf, but it doesn't wet it. It just slides right off. Right. Or water off the back of a duck. It just slides right off. Right. So, yeah. Or the lotus in the muddy lake. Lotus in the muddy lake is never sullied by the mud. No, but but you have to go deeper than that. Hanuman's sense of duty to Ram is so strong that it overrides the attraction to material nature. In other words, he's not attracted by the beauty of the women. He sees they're beautiful, but he's only concerned with finding Sita. Okay. So let's say a house is on fire and your child is in the house. when you run into the house, you're not interested in anything else except finding the child, right? You're not going to stop and say, oh, what, this is old manuscript in the library. It's such a valuable thing. Maybe I should grab that also. You're not even going to stop to grab anything. You're just looking for the child. You're going to go in, find the child, and get out. That's it. You're not interested in anything else. If you get interested in something else, it could divert your attention and the child could die. You might come out, with the manuscript, but not the child,
There is a sense of urgency in this nature.
Duty is the word. Duty is the word.
The service to Lord God, that is the,
Yeah.
that is the key.
He has to please the Lord. He has to also please Sugriva. He's fretting going back without having found Sita. Sugriva is a grouchy guy, But it's not that so much as pleasing Lord Ram. That's the main thing. When you act out of duty, see that what is Krishna's message to Arjuna? Yeah, but no, in other places he says certain things that are very important. Well, yeah, but don't be attached to the result. Yes. He also says, Abhyasa yogi yuktena chetasa nanyagamina paramam purusham divyam yati partana chintayan. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. Undeviated from the path, mind fixed on remembering me. So what is Hanuman thinking about? He's fixed on the fact that Ram asked him to find Sita. Sugriva asked him to find Sita, ordered him to find Sita. So this is what his mind is fixed on, right? He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. In this verse, Lord Krishna stresses the importance of remembering him. One's memory of Krishna is revived by chanting the Maha Mantra Hare Krishna. You want to improve your memory? Chant Hare Krishna regularly. By this practice of chanting and hearing the sound vibration of the Supreme Lord, one's ear, tongue, and mind are engaged. This mystic meditation is very easy to practice, and it helps one attain the Supreme Lord. The devotee can constantly think in the object of worship, the Supreme Lord, in any of his features, Narayana, Krishna, Rama, etc., by chanting Hare Krishna. This practice will purify him, and at the end of his life, due to his constant chanting, he will be transferred to the kingdom of God. Yoga practice is meditation on the supersoul within. Similarly, by chanting Hare Krishna, one fixes his mind always on the Supreme Lord. The mind is fickle, and therefore it is necessary to engage the mind by force to think of Krishna. One example. Okay, so here's the point. The whole focal point of yoga practice is to control the mind. The mind is the most difficult thing to control. Arjuna compares it. He says, Chanchala hi manak Krishna. Chanchala hi manak Krishna. He says, Vaya Ivambasi. He says, it's more difficult to control the mind than the raging wind or the hurricane. So he says in the 3rd chapter, in the 6th chapter, he says, Chanchala himana Krishna, pramati balavam dridha. Pramati balavadritam tasyaham nigraham manye vayur eva suduskaram. Vayur means the wind. Eva like, suduskaram, extremely difficult. The mind is restless, turbulent, and obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. Can you control the wind? No. So the mind is more difficult than that, right? The only thing that could stop the mind from going out of control is exactly what we saw here. Hanuman is going to give up, but then his intelligence kicks in. The intelligence is superior to the mind. So when the mind is controlled by the intelligence, it can be steered in the right direction. But if the mind overwhelms the intelligence, then you're lost. You're completely lost.
But this intelligence is the spiritual intelligence or the material intelligence? The spiritual body's intelligence or the material body's intelligence?
It's the spiritual intelligence that understands that, just like it's intrinsic in a mother to protect the child, right? It's a natural, let's say, emotion, tendency. So it's intrinsic in the soul to be surrendered to Krishna, to act under the dictation of the superior. Right? We just read that that is a natural position of the soul. So therefore, it says in the Bhagavad Gita, again, 6th chapter, 6th verse, as long as one's mind remains unconquered, an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice, illusion, etc. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictation of the personality of Godhead. What did we read previously? That the constitutional position of the living entity is to receive dictation of the superior. And when one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictation of personality of Godhead, who is situated within the heart of everyone as Paramatma. Real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart and then following his dictation. For one who takes the Krishna consciousness directly, perfect surrender to the dictation of the Lord follows out automatically. He repeated that 3 times in this short paragraph. That means it's of utmost importance. Whenever something is repeated 3 times, in a spiritual text, it means that is of utmost importance. So if we we voluntarily submit to the dictation of Krishna or Ram, then we can control the mind. Right?
For that we need the advice of the spiritual master.
Yes, because our disease is forgetfulness. In other words, it goes in one ear and comes out the other, because there's an empty space in between the 2 ears. Right? There's nothing to stop it. So we quickly forget. So therefore, constant repetition is necessary until it becomes a part of you and you cannot forget it. You know? But that repetition is not simply memorizing something. That repetition is regulated activities in devotional service called sadhana bhakti, right? And in order to follow sadhana bhakti, we have to end so we can wake up early tomorrow and start with Mangalarti again. Yeah. So we'll stop here. We're going to begin on chapter 10. So we learned today that perseverance is the root of success. Perseverance is the root of success. Hare Krishna.
But perseverance over here is mentioned. Perseverance in the service of the Lord, right? Because we cannot persevere to break the regulation or to.
Perseverance means you tolerate heat, cold, happiness, distress, all these things, and you continue to perform your duty.
Isn't there forbearance too? The willingness to tolerate a lot of things?
Yeah, but their meanings are very close to each other. You persevere that you're able to remain undeterred in spite of all obstacles. Right? Just like Hanuman, he decided, oh, I just better give up and go back. I didn't find Sita. But then his intelligence kicked in, and he started to think, he said, well, first of all, he's saying, what will the, it's difficult for me to go back to the irritable Sugriva. All my labors have been in vain, etc. But then he thinks it's better to fast to death than go back. It's not proper to destroy oneself. Now his intelligence is kicking in. But perseverance is the root of success. There is pleasure in endeavoring, so I should gather up my energy again. I have searched the drinking hall, picture gallery, flower groves, playground, rooms in the 7-storied buildings, underground cellars, religious edifices, gardens, and the passages within the palace. It is now necessary for me to search those places that I have not as yet seen. So his intelligence kicked in. He said, wait a minute, I haven't seen everything. Yeah, I saw a lot, but not everything. And he says, and there's pleasure in endeavoring, and perseverance is the root of success. So his intelligence kicked in. Yeah, spiritual intelligence. Yeah. Okay, after no more questions, then we'll stop and continue to. Yeah. The what? The what? Meat, yeah, different types of meat, yes. Rama what? Lamb. Yeah, not children. Kid means a baby lamb, yeah. But wait a minute, Ravana does eat human flesh. Yeah, Ravana is a Rakshasa. Rakshasas eat human beings like human beings eat burgers. Don't forget, Ravana threatened Sita that if she doesn't, he gave her a certain period of time. He said, if you don't surrender to me in that time, I will eat you. I'll kill you and I'll eat you. He's a Rakshasa. They eat human flesh. Yeah. They're dangerous people. Like Idi Amin in Africa. He was eating people. Yeah.
So you have given the example of the child in the house.
Yes.
This fire. So the father he is feeling the urgency to save it rather than any other material thing. So in case of Hanuman, how he was feeling the urgency of his duty? Because in case of father, he has a lot of love or attachment to kid. That's the reason like father is only saving the child rather than any other thing. But in case of Hanuman, he is doing his duty, but how he was feeling that urgency towards his duty?
See, there's a thing that you're missing something. He actually saw Rama. He never saw anyone as beautiful, amazing, gentle, kind. He was just overwhelmed by the sight of Rama. Earlier in the Ramayana, the first time Hanuman sees Ram, he's just overwhelmed. He's never seen anyone like that before. And
the third chapter of Kishkinda.
yeah.
The most beautiful chapters that you can ever read.
Yeah, and because of that, right away he's thinking in his heart, I have to do whatever is necessary to help Ram find his wife. And then, on top of all that, Sugriva orders him to do it. So not only He's attracted irresistibly to Rama, but he's ordered by Sugriva that he must find. So we don't understand, this is not an ordinary story. We're dealing with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No, Rama means, another meaning of Rama is the reservoir of all pleasure. We don't understand. We say the words, but we don't understand what it means, because it's a very profound concept. Anything that's pleasurable in this world, it originally emanates from the Lord. And imagine the intensity of pleasure by seeing the Lord. This is what happens to Hanuman. He becomes overwhelmed by it. Well, we're living in a mundane world, and our senses are dull. We don't know what it means to see God. Huh? Yeah. But Rama is appearing in a human-like form, but he has all the opulences, the vibhutis of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the color of his skin is unimaginably beautiful. You can't imagine. He's dark and slightly greenish, but that darkness is not like darkness that we know, like this darkness outside. The darkness is like something that's struck with thunder. Now you've seen, whenever you see lightning, it's brilliant. So that darkness of his skin is brilliant like thunder. It's not like dark like an African, It's a brilliant darkness. And even Ravana, who's a Rakshasa, he's also extremely beautiful. And you can see all these descriptions here, gems shining in the darkness, incomparable beauty and subtle light and things like that. So our senses are so dull, we can't imagine the experience of seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maybe we could read when Hanuman sees Ram. Doesn't look like it though.
Second chapter is when the first chapter is Ram remembering Sita in the season of spring. Second chapter is when Sugriva is introduced. Third chapter is when Hanuman meets.
Yeah, but there's no description.
Would you like me to read it?
I'm reading it here.
Each and every word emanating from him is another. He says, Raja Rishi Deva Rupina Tapasa Sanskruta Vidau Sarva Bhushana Bhusharnam Kim Artamna Vibhushtanam. That is the third chapter.
It just says.
I'm very positive it's the third chapter.
No, I know, but it is the introduction. But there's not a description of Hanuman's overwhelming ecstasy in seeing the Lord.
Offering them respect in accordance with the praising them with sweet and agreeable words. Hanuman, the son of wind, God spoke to them. You two are as fixed with the austere brows.
No, but it's like when we went into Ravana's, personal bedroom, there's a very elaborate description.
But he doesn't speak when he is meeting Ravan. Over here, he exhibits his emotion via his speech.
Now, there are other places where he explains. Anyway, I'll find it.
description of Lord, the first impression of Lord and Hanuman. It's so beautiful.
Okay, anyway, we'll go over it tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai. Bajrangati Hanuman ki jai.